Lisa knows this, she gets quoted a lot in our organisation because it was at my...
Are you hearing this, Byron? Quote Lisa Chinatti at Realtor.com. I think her head's going to explode out of the box on the podcast here.
Chinatti, the kiss ass.
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate news, market conditions, industry trends, and anything else that might help consumers, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm here with Byron Lazine and Lisa Chinatti, but nobody's here for us today. We've got Realtor.com CEO Damian Eales on. Damian, second appearance. Thanks for coming on. Just want to
I think it's the third.
Gratitude here.
Second.
Second.
Oh.
Thanks for ruining the opening, Lisa. So we're already off to a great start here. Damian, thanks for coming on. What's going on down in Austin? That's where you're coming to us from now. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Realtor.com.
Well, first and foremost, thanks for inviting me back. I kind of feel it was 3, Lisa, because the first one I was completely smashed by you guys in absentia, and so I was there in spirit, let's say, but now
You're always here in spirit.
So my second in person, but yeah, I'm back in Austin, having spent a week in DC at the National Association of Realtors conference, and it's wonderful here. We're building a lot of momentum in our Austin new headquarters here in Austin, where we announced that I guess only about 4 months ago now. Even though I've been here for a little bit longer, we've as we've been shutting some offices elsewhere throughout North America, we've now permanently made the decision that Austin is our headquarters. So come visit when you're next in town.
I'm coming in August.
But Lisa only gets those special invites
We heard about this today on our
out of this panel. Why so many businesses have done it? Before we get into some of the other topics we want to hit, why did Realtor.com decide to go from California to Austin? It's a trend, obviously. It's been consistent. But what was your decision?
A few different reasons. One, I guess, first and foremost, in fact, we had acquired OpCity here in Austin, and because of that acquisition, we had a premises and we'd started accumulating more employees here. 2 of my executive leadership team were already located here as well, so that helped. But from a more strategic perspective, our previous headquarters was in Santa Clara, and I'd spent some time there, and I'd spent some time here before we'd made the decision. And I just felt that from a broad range of perspectives, certainly from the fact that this is a significant technology hub, obviously not as big as Silicon Valley where we were, but a significant technology hub and one that's growing rapidly. And I felt that we could be a big fish in a relatively small pond here as fundamentally as a technology company. Secondly, as a university town and surrounded by other significant universities, it brings with it a lot of talent, but also a youthfulness that's really energizing. And from a lifestyle perspective, as I hope to show you in person, but the food scene here, the music scene here, the entertainment scene here is just outstanding. It's a really fun town, and so I guess the other reason is that when I was actually staying here and in hotels, etc. before my wife had joined me, and you'd have dinner by yourself, and there's just a sense of optimism amongst the employees that you would talk about behind the counter of these restaurants that really struck me. Actually, it's a very optimistic city, and a lot of young people here who were born here are very proud of what their city has become and is becoming. So, that grabbed me when I spoke to them. So that was another reason. And if you want one final reason, there's no state tax.
No state tax and affordability.
Could have been number one, if you ask me. I don't know. I like that one the best, Damian.
Real estate affordability, because of the level that Austin builds at, is something that can benefit employees. I'll be looking for my invite. I prefer Michelin star, Damian, but I will settle for just below. But
well, it's funny. We have 9 Michelin star. I think it's 9
Michelin star
restaurants here, including 3
That's incredible.
Michelin star barbecue.
Should be easy for you to get you and I at one of those. When Lisa comes to visit, she's not picky. She'll settle for anything. So don't worry about the Michelin
Taco
star
Bell.
list. Yeah,
Taco Bell is delicious. Okay.
Oh yeah, taco. So all right,
you hater.
Tom, we've got our list of stuff, but because Damian mentioned NAR, this will lead into one of your other questions. I don't want to spend a lot of time on NAR because they're pretty boring. They're pretty irrelevant at this point in their journey, in their lifespan. I want to ask Damian, you were there in DC, and from your perspective, what position does NAR have right now as a leader, as a rule maker in our industry? If you look at CCP, the rule that they made up in 2019, they've taken all the meat off the bone. There's nothing left to it. It's an irrelevant rule that basically the way they've restructured it doesn't have teeth. Just this past week, they said, oh, there's no commingling. Never mind, commingle. Go ahead and do what you want. Their rules that they've had over time are now non-existent or have no teeth. So what is their real leadership strategy? Was it clear to you and identified in DC?
Well, I think, I spoke to a lot of people from the NAR when I was there, and I presented to their executive committee as to the progress of Realtor.com, and I spoke to their past presidents. But probably more importantly, I spoke to a lot of people on the fringes of the conference, and this answer is probably boring, but I must say that I felt a real sense of positive momentum within the organisation, and that organisation and this industry has gone through enormous challenges, I think, in recent years. But I got a renewed sense of optimism, to be honest, and they play. It's easy to be critical of the NAR and perhaps more broadly organised real estate, and I think the MLSs too have come under a lot of criticism, I think, as part of recent conversations about clear cooperation, etc. But I must say that I kind of shake my head a little bit when I hear those criticisms, because I do think that the organised real estate that has come out of those two bodies, if you consider the MLS as one large body, I suppose, the benefit of organised real estate in America, I think, has been of enormous benefit to buyers and sellers fundamentally, but it's also been of great benefit, I think, to realtors. One of the great benefits of people from Australia often ask me, nothing to do with real estate. They say, "What's from a business perspective? What makes America great?" And one of the answers that I give them is that the states are very competitive. Like, it's a real benefit in this country that you've got 50 states who are trying to go one up on the other. There's inbuilt competition in this country like I think nowhere else. That doesn't exist in Australia nearly to the same extent. But what comes with that is a lot of variance state by state. And I do think that to that extent, having a body like the NAR and having consistency across MLSs gives this industry a great deal of benefit. So, look, in summary, I think I found it a very optimistic meeting.
Is there one thing that makes you most optimistic?
Well, I think that recent changes in leadership, perhaps. I think that I've found Kevin Sears to be, as president of the NAR, to be a completely purposeful and practical leader. I'm getting to know Nakia Wright better, but I'm very impressed with what she's delivering.
Yeah, she's a hard one to book.
Yeah. And but
her leadership style doesn't feel very 2025 to me. It feels a little more 1985, but that's I'll be seeing her next week, hopefully, and I'll kind of put her to the test of that.
And I'll leave that with you, Byron. And
smart move.
But even more broadly, I mean, our organisation is trying to form greater connections with them right throughout the organisation, and we see that we're kind of in this all together as an industry. And I think that the industry, one other observation about this industry is that I do think that we we can be, and I'm not talking about the NAR specifically, I'm talking more broadly. I said this on stage at a recent Inman conference, is that as an industry, we can be very insular, and we really spend a lot of time talking about a lot of issues that I don't think necessarily really affect our consumers. I mean, I think clear cooperation is an example of one. I was recently on stage at Inman in New York, and I made the point that for all of the hours that we've spent talking about clear cooperation and wringing our hands about clear cooperation, if we'd just spent as an industry the same amount of time talking about affordable housing, we would be so much better off as an industry, because it's a bipartisan issue. I don't think that there's anybody in our industry who would disagree with the fact that we don't have enough homes in America. Realtor.com believes that we're 4 million short, and that we should be influencing politicians and lawmakers to address that issue. You know, it strikes me that we are such an influential industry. I'm not talking about the NAR. I'm just talking about realtors in their local communities with local lawmakers. The biggest issue impacting cost of living in America, and the prior administration knew this actually, and I think that the real politic of the prior administration was that they knew that housing affordability was the biggest issue, but they knew that they couldn't solve it. So the patsy, conveniently, was realtor commissions. I think that the industry would be far better served to focus on an issue like building more homes. At Realtor.com, we've commenced a campaign called Let America Build, where we're trying to shine a light on those states who are doing a good job and those states who aren't doing a good job.
Yeah, some of the data has been outstanding on that.
Yeah, I mean that's where we should be focused, and I would say that that was a topic of conversation at this conference. Our editor Amy Mass chaired a panel dealing with the oversupply of regulation. We've got, as I often say, we've got an abundance of land in this country to build on. We've just got an oversupply of regulations preventing it from being done economically.
That's the key, is preventing it from being done economically.
Indeed. I mean, in one of our reports, we actually quote it's a National Association of Home Builders statistic, but 1/4 of the average cost of a new home is compliance regulatory costs. That's the point I make about the prior administration. If they were successful in shaving, let's say, 1 whole percentage point off realtor commissions, it would have been at the expense of buyer agency, I might add, which would have been devastating, I think. But even if they were successful, it would have paled into insignificance in the context of the increase in the cost of housing that has occurred in recent years. We are at last time I looked, we're at a 40-year low in terms of housing affordability. First-time home buyers don't experience mortgage gridlock. They've never had a high interest rate in their lives, and yet, the average first-time home buyers in America participating in the marketplace is to the tune of 33%, the long-term average. But in recent years, it's been closer to 1/4. So there's a lot of first-time home buyers who are sitting on the sidelines, not because of high interest rates, but because homes are simply unaffordable and because we simply don't have enough homes. Sorry to ramble, but I'll say one more thing. But we mentioned Austin and Texas the other day. Texas represents 9% of the population of America, but it represents 15% of new home builds.
Yes.
As in contrast, the state where most people come from into Texas, California, is 12% of the population, but 7% of new home builds. The number one reason why people come to Texas, the number one reason is affordable housing. The number 3 reason is the job. And I think that's fascinating that affordable housing is driving people from their home state to a new state. And it's not political. It's not a blue-red thing, because the second state that they're coming from is actually Florida, and which is a high-cost housing state. So, this is the kind of topic that we should be talking more about.
Yeah, and it's and you guys are doing a great job. And some of the data that you referred to that Danielle and her team have put together on that is absolutely exceptional. You'll like to hear, Damian, that I said that to all of Ryan Serhan's agents when he had me on a call last week. They asked me what's my favorite data source right now. I said Realtor.com, and
I appreciate that.
there's no question about that. But there is something you said in there. Tom's got a question for you on
Yes.
I'll let Tom be the bad guy and ask you this question. We just got one question we got to get through on CCP. Sure. I agree with you. It's a boring conversation right now. It basically, because of NAR, doesn't exist. But Tom, it's got an interesting question.
Well, not only is it a boring question, it's not the right question. It's a silly question. I agree with you, Damian, on this, that I think there's way too much focus on this. But we'd be remiss if we didn't ask. So Zillow has come out with a very clear stance on CCP. Homes.com, your buddy, Andy Florence, came out with a statement on CCP. We've got EXP, Compass. I mean, and I agree with you. It's not the right question. I would encourage agents to focus on your business. Forget about CCP. But where does Realtor.com stand on CCP? Obviously, you've got a competitive business model with Zillow and Homes.com. So I'd love to hear what you think, because there's different priorities here based on your business and how you're running it. Tell us where your company stands.
We have been very clear on this point, is that we fully support the concept of clear cooperation. I made a point before the policy was amended that, it shouldn't be that these policies don't evolve with the times, and we were comfortable with the changes that the NAR made. But we are fully supportive of the concept of clear cooperation, and let me just dig into why. And it goes back to this concept of organised real estate. The concept, if I go all the way back, the prescience of the NAR in the first instance to have supported MLSs through their digitisation from the old book to the digital catalogue, but partnering also, creating this compact, initially only with Realtor.com, to broadcast those listings for free, created a genuinely consistent and open marketplace in the United States that is really second to none globally. The concept that to participate in an MLS, you have to cooperate under a consistent set of rules is common sense, quite frankly, because not only does it benefit all of the realtors who participate, but it benefits sellers in that market who don't have to pay to be seen. I mean, it's anathema to common sense to consider in a market that we're entering into where there are more sellers than buyers, historically high proportions of sellers, that those sellers don't want to be seen by the scarce pool of buyers. I mean, it's, as I said, it's anathema to common sense. And it obviously also supports American buyers insofar as there aren't hidden listings. Buyers see all listings. So, look, I think it's inappropriate for me to go to a potluck dinner and only bring a fork. You've got to bring a plate as well, and the same applies in terms of clear cooperation. So we're fully supportive of it. We've said it in public statements. Every time I'm on stage, I'll say that. I think the secondary question that you're asking is that Zillow has gone further, as has Redfin,
yes,
and have made changes to their listing policy. I think that I support what they're doing. I think it's good what they're doing, but unfortunately, I'm not under the same rules that they operate under. My agreement, I'm not an IDX broker. I have a one-to-one agreement with every MLS in the country, and because of that agreement, I'm obliged to show those listings. It's as simple as that. We're talking though to MLSs, and if MLSs say to me that they don't want to show those listings, then we'll find a way not to show them.
I didn't know that about your relationship with the
That's
MLSs. That's new information for me.
You heard it here first.
Fascinating.
And
Yeah.
how do you think about that structure? Does that put you at an advantage or disadvantage in terms of how Zillow and Redfin are
I
structured.
mean, I guess you could say that we might have more listings. I don't intend to promote that fact. I mean, I think that clear cooperation is a good policy. It's for the benefit of buyers. It's for the benefit of sellers.
Totally agree.
And I think that whatever I do, I should be supporting that policy. I do think that we are on the cusp of a period of time where a lot of sellers are going to work out after the fact, unfortunately, that had they got more eyeballs, had they got more buyers, had they got more offers, they would have got a higher price. I feel like I'm getting older every day, but I'm old enough to have sold some houses in Australia and gone to my auction and watched nobody bid and thought to myself, I wish I would have had just one more person there who may have bid on the home. That's the extreme, but that's the same thing that will happen in a closed marketplace. The benefit of, I mean, look, in Australia, you obviously have to pay to be seen. Thousands and thousands of dollars a seller will have to pay to be seen. There is never a question as to whether or not you want to be on a portal. There's only a question as to whether you want to be on one portal or two portals. And even though realestate.com.au is my sister company and shareholder, to be honest, I have always obviously advertised on realestate.com.au first and foremost because it's got a something like a 4.4x advantage over the number two portal. So if you're not there, you're nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But secondly, I have advertised on the second portal as well because I don't want to take any chance that I don't get one more buyer. Because as you guys all know, the difference between one buyer and two buyers can be extraordinary.
Absolutely.
In a bidding war. So the concept that you want to be private because it's boutique. Come on, I mean, for 0.000% of the population, okay, you may have a point, but for everybody else on the planet, if you're selling something, you want to advertise something, you want it to be seen, you want buyers, you want offers.
Yeah. Listen, I got no problem with Compass deciding that they're going to have this business model if it's legal. Sure. I agree with you at the same time that I think it's just a poor business model. Is there any fear though? I think we're blowing it a little bit out of proportion. Like, is this a fad? Do you have fear that
I think we're blowing
this business model gets bigger?
I think we're blowing it out of proportion.
I agree.
Quite frankly.
Me too.
And you know what? I've said to our editor and our journalists, I said, let's find some real authentic case studies of sellers who feel that they have missed out because they were advised to not sell publicly, but to sell privately. And we will expose those examples when they come to us. And I think that is going to really shine a light on practices that were not in the interest of the seller. So our journalism we are the number one portal for residential real estate news. When I started, we were the 20th most quoted news source for residential real estate in the United States more broadly, if you take in all of the news brands in this country. Today, we are number 5, and I think within 2 years we'll be number 1. And of course, we amplify that content right across the News Corp network. That's beyond being number 5. That's additional to being number 5 in this country. So I think we can help in this scenario by finding examples of where sellers have lost money and exposing the practice of private portals and the impact that that has on their economic, the real impact it has on their economic outcome. That's where we're going to focus.
I thought
I love. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I thought what was interesting about that LinkedIn seller, the LinkedIn seller from the
Yes.
Bay Area that I'm sure, Damian, you read. We covered it with Bam a whole bunch, but it was actually the buyer who had the first feeling of like, am I doing the right thing? Like, they were actually like, am I buying it too high? Because it wasn't exposed to the market. There was no competition. So then the seller was kind of like, hey, we'll go to the open market. It goes 100,000 more. So that buyer actually had the great deal, but nobody knew. The buyer nor the seller had a true test of what market value was. Both got nervous. Both had no idea what was going on. They were in a siloed world. And once it got exposed, it was 100,000 more that the open market ended up, coming in at for price.
Yeah, I can't imagine the countless examples. I think that the other thing that's going to happen is I think that competitive brokers, to those who are hiding their listings, are going to increasingly gain power, particularly once again in a buyer's market. And I think as the stories start to get exposed of those who missed out, they will leverage that to knock on doors and say to sellers, do you know why you're really doing this? And I think that's going to make for very uncomfortable conversations.
Mm-hmm. But where I was going is I love that you're talking about data case studies, Damian, because communicating with clients using data is a skill set of a serious agent. And when you have these case studies, I mean, I know when I go on a listing appointment and I know who I'm interviewing against, I'm bringing the article about being banned from the portals. I'm ready to go. I've got the ammunition there, and that's going to make those people look a lot different in the eyes of the seller, because what the seller really cares about is them. So I think that's great. You're putting that stuff together, and the more data that's out there, the better off the consumer is going to be, which is incredible.
Terrific. Yeah.
So we're talking about sellers here. Lisa's got a seller question. So I'm going to let you kind of jump in here. I think this is very interesting when it comes to portals.
Yeah, so it's interesting. One of the things that I think all of us, and maybe most agents, especially those listening that have been focused on Damian, is seller lead generation. And it's a really hot button, right? And I know Realtor.com has kind of made a leap into heavy seller lead generation with the listing toolkit product. And I think finding it's not as easy to generate seller leads, or at least not as easy to generate equal quality seller leads. And so just curious on like your learnings around that and things that agents can keep in mind as they start to try to generate more seller leads on their own.
Yeah, a couple of learnings for me. The first and obvious one is that it struck me that coming into the role 2 years ago, that we were doing a reasonable job, not a great job. We're doing a much better job, I think. I hope you guys would say today, at serving our clients, realtors, on the buy side of the business. But it's
phenomenal job.
Amazing. It's like night and day.
We're launching Market VIP right now in the other room. So, I mean, this is happening. Like it's, and we just came to our market.
All of us are Realtor.com partners and very passionate about that partnership. We're not shy to say it. We had a mastermind or a workshop in Lisa's office recently. Realtor.com was part of the conversation. We're never shy to share about that partnership because it's extremely beneficial for both sides and a high quality customer coming through. So, yeah, we can't say enough good things about what you guys are doing there.
I appreciate that. That's great to hear, and I feel that we've got some new momentum as we're building right across the board. But it also struck me that 2 years ago that we were a very product-centric organization, and actually Lisa knows this. She gets quoted a lot in our organization because He was at my.
Are you hearing this, Byron?
What-
Quote Lisa
she's
Chinatti at Realtor.com. I think her head's going to explode out of the box on the podcast here.
Chinatti, the kiss ass. You've got a CRM for your leads. Great. But what about your clients? Leads are important. It's how we get clients, but clients are everything moving forward in our business. And if you're not giving them a high touch, done for you experience from day one to years after the closing, you're leaving referrals and repeat business on the table. That's why my team uses Mosaic. It's a client experience platform that picks up where CRMs leave off. Personalized property searches, offer comparisons, real-time transaction timelines. Clients want transparency today. This provides it. To post-close homeowner reminders and equity updates, it's everything your client needs without you having to duct tape 5 different systems together. So most agents lose their clients after the deal. They just forget about them. The client forgets about the agent. Mosaic helps you keep them, stay top of mind, and win the next deal before they even think about calling someone else. But Mosaic has limited availability in each market, and some are already full. So check out the link and just see if there's availability in your market. The link will provide you that information. If it's available for your market, check it out. Mosaic, link down below.
No.
It was the opposite.
It was the opposite.
Oh, it's the other face.
We were at a large dinner, and I was leaving the dinner, and one of my staff members said,
I wasn't there.
They said, "Damien, your ear is bleeding." And I said, "That's because I was sitting next to Lisa Chinatti. she was roasting me." But one of the comments that I left remembering from that dinner, was burnt into my brain, in fact, was that Lisa said, "You know, Damien, you guys are so uncoordinated." Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but you're so uncoordinated. I might be on the phone to somebody from Realtor.com, and there's somebody else in the office across the hallway, also on the phone to Realtor.com. They're talking about 2 completely different products that are almost in conflict. And why don't you just talk to us as one customer? And so the words I use in our organisation is we have been somewhat product centric. You know, we've organised our business around the product, and every product has a different customer, target customer. We build it separately. It's got a separate app, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We shouldn't be thinking that way. We should be saying, who is our customer? Who is our target customer? What are their needs? How do we serve their needs such that success for us looks like they grow their market share? If they partner with us, they will win in their local market. That's what we want to achieve. And so back to seller leads. The obvious question then becomes, what does one of our core customers require? They require very high quality buyer leads. Of course, they require seller leads. There's no team that we deal with that doesn't list properties. So why haven't we been serving that need well? So it is a much higher focus for us today. And in fact, you know, I can't release too many financials, but, you know, out of really nowhere, the growth categories in our business, and we include seller, new homes, rental in there, but seller is really the big one, now represents more than 20% of our total revenue from nothing a couple of years ago. So, and seller is for us is on a tear, and it's doing incredibly well because we bought a company called Upnest, which we now call Real Choice Selling. We invested a lot of money in Listing Toolkit on the other side of the marketplace to work with realtors, and now increasingly teams, to enable teams to gain more listings. And, you know, it's come from a low base, but it's growing rapidly, and I'm sure that we can improve on many fronts. But we're helping our teams generate more listings in their local market. I mean, the third aspect is marketing. That's the third need. There's multiple needs that these teams have, and I think it relates well to seller. And we're increasingly looking at how can we amplify the brands that we're working with on our platform, but also off our platform, such that in the wild, they are seen more and more as the leading team in that marketplace. and leading teams gain more listings.
There's so much like really good stuff for our listeners that you said in there. I think the first one that I took away is understanding one of the things that you do really well is the needs of your customer. And I think we talk about that both. There's so many different segments within what Byron, Tom, and I do with as team leaders or brokers. Our customer, I always tell folks, my customer is my agent, right? And so being able to understand the needs of our agents, which you guys do a part of helping us that, and then agents understanding the needs of the buyers and the sellers through some of the different stuff. You said so much that was really fascinating in there. I think people should go back and listen and put the head of a real estate business on there. And how does it correlate? Because there's a lot of correlations.
Good. Yeah, I mean, we recognise that with teams too. By the way, you've just touched on another point. Is that team leaders want to find great team members, and I do think that's, stay tuned. But I think it's one area that I think that we're going to be able to help with even more in the future.
That's awesome.
Well,
So you had a great point. You've done an amazing job, and all three of us would agree with driving the quality of the leads on the buy side. What have you learned about trying to replicate the quality of the leads on the sell side? Have you been involved with that? Because I find it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, we start at the very top of the purchase funnel, and we find that we have an audience that is more engaged than all of the other portals. How do I measure that? It's because they look at more pages when they're on our site. We are increasingly going through a process of converting that engagement into a known relationship. So I think that real estate portals have probably for too long focused on anonymous audience and the quantity of audience. We're increasingly focused on a known relationship. There's a lot of learnings that we take from realestate.com.au in this sense, insofar as the majority of Australian homes are claimed by somebody on site at realestate.com.au. That's our aspiration too in this country. So today we have probably too many anonymous relationships which we're trying to convert into listing leads. In the future, you will find that we have far more known relationships that we will convert into listing leads. And if we can have more of our audience claiming their home and also, quite honestly, claiming their mortgage with us, I think that we will be in a position that we can better increasingly improve the quality of listing leads to our realtors.
What's that mean? Claiming their mortgage with us?
Registering their mortgage with us so that we know who their mortgage is with and what their mortgage is, so that we can better serve them. I think one of the enormous advantages that you will see amplified in the future with Realtor.com is that we will be the only true marketplace in the country, open marketplace. And I say that because increasingly when you go to Zillow as a consumer, you will increasingly be connected to only one of their realtors, only one of their flex customers, and you will increasingly be connected to the Zillow mortgage. If you think that they're closing as an ecosystem, Rocket and Redfin are already there. It's one broker. It's going to be one mortgage. Whereas Realtor.com, I think, has a role to play in the industry where it can serve all realtors in some way, shape or form, some deeper relationships, some more narrow relationships, but we can serve all of the industry, and we can serve more mortgage companies and provide more mortgage choice to our consumers. I've just mentioned real estate, I've just mentioned mortgage, but it could be so many other things as well associated with the home. But we really see that our open status as a marketplace will increasingly become a competitive advantage.
And brokers for years have, with commission compression, have started to, they've built their business models around ancillary. So mortgage and title. And now, to your point, Redfin and Zillow are extremely focused on growing their mortgage, their title. And have you had any internal pressures from, your staff, advisors, News Corp, anyone to say, Damian, Realtor.com should be a follower there and go after this ancillary, get into this bloodbath of ancillary product competition, seemingly where everybody in the market is going, where they're going to compete over, as example, mortgage. Have you had pressure to do the same?
Great question.
No particular pressure other than perhaps the pressure I put on myself to say we're not making enough money out of mortgage. I think that we recognise that what Zillow and Rocket Redfin are doing, we think that we have a better alternative, and we can have a much better alternative over time. And two characteristics of that alternative will be, one, that we want to offer choice, and two, that we want to work with the teams that we support in local markets who may have a pre-existing relationship with a mortgage broker who they know well, who they know is going to help them close the sale. We want to recognise those relationships and support those relationships. Yes, we want to make money out of it. I won't be ashamed to say that, but we want to do it in a way that is pro our customers, works with our customers to close more deals, rather than works against them by trying to take the mortgage business away from them.
So all the internal reports from the portals and or brokerages that want to push all-in-one and really have a high level of capture on mortgage, when you listen to, they're all brokers, right? Whether the portal or brokerage, to your point. I think how you're thinking about positioning Realtor.com. Hey, we're the only open marketplace that's not a brokerage. That's going to be a unique proposition for you versus the competition. But the internal surveys all suggest that consumers want all-in-one. Then when you look, I looked at an ICE mortgagetech.ice report here just this past week, and the reasons why consumers are selecting a loan officer, all-in-one was nowhere near the top of the list. So, when I would say that's probably a better overall look. Do you have data that suggests that consumers want, all-in-one experience, or do consumers, or do consumers not overwhelmingly want that?
Well, there's a great piece of data. It's that Zillow only attaches about a quarter, Redfin only attaches about 30%, I believe, of their leads to a mortgage. Actually, I think it's a lot less. Actually, when you get to conversion with Zillow, don't quote me on the numbers, but the point is that there is a lot of consumers that they're dealing with that don't want the mortgage that they're offering. So for me, my total addressable market is 100%. I want to offer choice to every consumer that comes through our portal. Now, we're not going to get 100%, obviously, but I think through providing choice, we have the opportunity to solve more of the individual needs of an individual customer who might not be suited to the specific product that those two companies have to offer.
So this ICE report, I just pulled it up. Here are when choosing a lender for your loan, which of the following are most important to you? Number one, it should be obvious to everybody. It's lowest rate, low lender fees. Number two, time to close the loan.
Mm-hmm.
Number three,
big one.
The variety of loan terms and the products that they, if you got to get creative, what kind of products? A previously, established relationship. You work well with that lender and they've already gotten the job done for you. You got to go all the way down to the sixth, where this kind of, I guess you could argue, would be all-in-one. Extra services provided by the lender to ensure a straightforward process. Extra services might be, title. And, that's the only one I can start to attach to that. But when you listen to a broker, you listen to these portals right now, it's like overwhelmingly consumer wants it all wrapped into one place. Overwhelming 90, whatever the numbers are. I don't see that in the data that is non-biased, from what I've seen so far. And anecdotally, I don't get that from consumers either,
but I think they want one way to do it in that it's easy, not that they want one way to do it in that it's one provider, right? I think that they want one central like place where everybody's communicating and all the paperwork and everything is stored. I think that that's what I take from that, but not that they want one provider.
That's why you see like agents who have lender, I don't want to say partners, but relationships. They have a high capture rate with those folks because they're all communicating together. They work as a team, even though they're with different companies. So that might be a good observation on your part, Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, speed to close was one of those top reasons, and I'm sure that happens more frequently when there's a partnership between the realtor and the lender and the buyer.
And the title company, right? When all of those people, when you don't have to have like 50 different email chains going because the agent talks here and the title person talks here, but when there's one central place where you can go and get all the data, that's my take for what the consumer wants with that.
And I think related to the first and second, and probably and multiple of the reasons that you had in that list, Byron, is that if I'm the intermediary, if I have the direct relationship with the consumer, and I can keep an eye on, if I know what their mortgage is, if I can keep an eye on what the market is, much better than an individual consumer can, then perhaps I can be that trusted intermediary that is constantly looking to see if they're on the right deal at the right time. And that's what choice allows me to do, but that's not what will be able, that will not be open to my competitors in a closed marketplace.
And so Realtor.com is maybe a digital consultant on the mortgage side to put them in position for the things that they want most. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this is what I'm hearing from you. Put them in the right lane for speed or rate, because you're looking at the overall market and matching their needs up with what's available in the market.
I mean, exactly. And we're talking about mortgage, but we could be talking about so many other things. You know, if I know who the consumer is, if I know the home that they own, if I know the mortgage that they have, if I'm an open marketplace, I have a very unique opportunity to serve that consumer better by ensuring that they're put in touch with the right connections in a whole variety of different needs. And I honestly think that, to me, you know, Realtor.com is, I'll get onto another topic here, but it's related, but Realtor.com has demonstrated an enormous endurance over 30 years to deal with all of the technological shifts that have occurred. And we're facing into a new one today with artificial intelligence. And I just think that part of the solution to artificial intelligence is knowing who the customer is. So having that known relationship. So I think if I piece all of that together, we're in a pretty unique position that we have a very unique relationship with the industry. We have a very unique relationship with the MLSs. We have a very unique relationship through our brand with consumers in terms of trust that could be leveraged more broadly. And I think that if we put all of that together in the context of an open marketplace, a known consumer, we're positioned really well, I think, in a competitive context.
When you guys are having internally discussions on AI, and I'm glad you brought it up, you know, how do you frame out these discussions? Do you frame it out as we're going to be able to hire less and that's why we need to get on it? We're going to make our, you know, employees more efficient, our partners more efficient. You know, if you're looking at the opportunities, how much time are you spending? 5 minutes in a 60-minute meeting on it? How much time are you putting into, you know, being a leader in this space? And what are the benefits that are going to come out of it for the company? You know, is it reduction in hiring, more efficiency for partners and employees? How much time right now would you say out of the pie chart do you spend on it? And then what are going to be the major benefits?
I think I spend time on all of it. I don't compartmentalize my day to say now I'm going to spend my hour on AI, but I would say that I would increasingly both use AI personally and like every hour of the day and contemplate AI in almost every meeting that I have. So, and getting to your kind of sources of value, I suppose you were articulating, I would say it's all of those. You know, I don't know whether it will be less employees, but it'll be different employees. I say to our, in fact, we have our leadership forum here with our top 50 leaders in Austin in the first week of July, and we're dedicating half a day to AI. And the big message that we're going to deliver to those guys is that if you're not looking to how you leverage artificial intelligence in all sorts of different ways, then you're not doing your job anymore. And jobs will be replaced by those who know how to leverage the new tool. But if you can't leverage that tool, if you don't have the intellectual knowledge of what's available to you to solve the problem that you're facing into, then you're not going to be in those senior roles in the future. There's no doubt about that. So, productivity improvements are happening already in our business, where one type of part of the workforce is probably exiting, but we're hiring new people who are specialists in the ability to create very simply AI agents to solve simple problems that are costing us a lot of money. So there are improvements that will occur in lead nurturing, and there are improvements that will occur in client servicing. There are certainly improvements that are occurring already in terms of efficiency in coding that we couldn't even contemplate such a short period of time ago. I was talking to our head of HR the other day and communications, and I said, I seriously want you to absorb every speech I've made, every podcast I've given, every note I've written, and create a Damian chatbot.
Yeah.
Such that when I need to write a speech,
when Lisa calls you, you can just refer to the
exactly. But speeches might take me 3 hours to write or 4 hours to write if I'm really thoughtful about a speech. But that could really help me do it, in an hour,
or less.
Or less.
Damian, you're one of the most powerful CEOs in real estate, leading one of the giants of our industry in Realtor.com. What steps do you take when, I think day-to-day agents get busy and I got to tackle this AI thing or whatever the thing is, and it gets pushed out because day-to-day, people just get busy. What steps do you take to say, we're going to take this on in the next, are you a 90-day guy, a 12-week guy, or, we're going to put that into next year? How do you plan when to tackle big new initiatives without overwhelming the team?
I often talk about sequential delivery rather than concurrent delivery. I think that where our eyes are all bigger than our stomachs. We all want to do more, eat more than we could possibly consume. And so it's very important. I think it's a really important trait of any successful leader. You don't have to be a CEO, is to recognize that you can't do everything at once. And you will do more if you do less, but execute sequentially, deliver it well so that you don't have to come back and sort out problems afterwards and then deliver the next thing. So, we have product roadmaps and marketing roadmaps where we want to, where we are constantly trying to, reduce the breadth, but do that narrow execution exceptionally well. In fact, one of our themes for our upcoming conference is execute, execute, execute. It's about excellence in execution will increase our momentum. And so, going back to that customer-centric concept, for our clients, that means better buyer leads, better seller leads, better branding and marketing promotion. And the fourth category is greater productivity for the team. So there are, we're not releasing any news on new product releases today, but we're working with companies like Wailopo as an example of trying to say, how can we help our team leaders be more productive? Again, if I go back to the start, what does success look like for us as it relates to our clients? Success looks like if you choose to partner with Realtor.com, if they're your partner of choice, then our gold standard is that you gain market share through your period of working with us. If that's our objective, then we kind of stand 3 steps back and say, okay, what do we need to offer this team leader such that they're going to gain market share in their market? And it creates a whole different series of conversations.
Great. Very well said, Damian. Appreciate it. Tom, you got anything else we left out?
I think that's a great spot to end it here. I mean, I wrote that down. I mean, that's something I'm going to take to heart here. So thanks for the advice, Damian. Hopefully we can get this operation off the ground here at some point.
I was hoping we had a 105 fastball, high and tight left in the bag to throw at Damian, but I guess we don't.
Well, I think, while I've got this incredible audience watching me, I'd say that if you heard something that you like and you want to come and work at Realtor.com down in Austin, then we're going places. When we say that we want to be number one, we're not kidding. We are going to become number one, and we need the most talented people in America to help us get there.
So you're hiring?
Absolutely, we're hiring.
Oh,
I love that.
I'll take a third job.
Yeah.
Always welcome.
Let's negotiate it over one of those 9 Michelin stars, and we'll figure it out. I'm sure I can get a nice package over dinner there.
Very good.
Damian, it's a pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you second half of the year. Sure. And congratulations on I have not found a partner in the last 12 months with Realtor.com who is not satisfied to extremely satisfied with their partnership. So it speaks to your leadership, speaks to the team that you've built. The team is energetic. They're collaborative. And so I applaud you for all of that.
I appreciate it.
And they're accessible. That's my added word, accessible.
Yeah. I would go with friendly, collaborative. I mean, we had
collaborative for sure.
We had we had this launch. Literally, this is going on right now in the other room. And Sammy came out, Brian Gibson, and our team went out, and they're like, "Why are these people taking us out to dinner?" And they're not used to this kind of treatment. So I think that says a lot when you treat your clients. And I'm very serious. It goes a long way, and that's a lesson for a lot of the agents listening too.
That's great. Sammy's a friendly guy.
Yeah, but the whole company.
Good hire on your part.
Yeah, the 3 of us did a Zoom that Brian Ellis was on. Brian Gibson was also on that call. Both of Brian's, but Sammy kind of orchestrated it. Where I don't know, guys, what would you say? There's 40, maybe 50, maybe 30, whatever it was. Realtor.com employees, staff members, leaders on this call, and we were just kind of talking about the business, and there's a real eagerness to learn, right? Great leaders are always learning, always trying to tweak strategy, get, pitches better, get just sharper in the business. And, sometimes there's certain companies that want to sit on a perch and already feel like they've got everything figured out. I thought, the culture at your company is like, we want to learn, we want to collaborate. And I think that's a good recipe for long-term success. So congrats on that, Damian. Thanks for coming on again. I think we've buttered you up at the end here enough where we'll get a third pod.
It's like a buttered roll when you're waiting for dinner and you're famished. It's just sitting right there.
Those garlic knots, but appreciate it.
I've really enjoyed it. Great to see you guys.
You too. Thank you. Thank you so much for checking out this week's Knowledge Brokers podcast. If you want to take what we're doing here at BAM and use it in your own business, join us over at School. We just switched BAMX into the #1 education and community platform. Go to school.com/BAMX or hit the link in the description, school.com/BAMX. I'll see you in the community.